Yeah. Now let's move on quickly. The struggle for local government autonomy is fast cascading into a major political and legal battle in Nigeria. The federal government and state governments have begun legal fireworks at the Supreme Court over this knotty issue. A 7-man panel of justices of the Apex Court, led by Justice Garba Lawal, has been set up to do justice to the dispute. The federal government had dragged the state governors to court seeking full autonomy for the 774 local government areas in the country to boost their efficiency. Now, Nigerians wait with bated breath for the outcome. Gentlemen, let me have you react to this before we move to our guests. Speak here.
Yes, I think for a long time, I have been particularly frustrated about how governors have been treating the third tier of government. Governors believe that because you have what we call the joint account, then they can do what they like with the funds of local governments. There is a former governor of a North Central State that a local government chairman confronted him about the fact that he was tampering with their funds. North Central, he knows himself. This local government chairman, he then fired this local government chairman. The courts ruled that he should restore the local government chairman to his position. But he didn't he did not execute the court judgment until he left office. He knows himself. The governor, I don't want to mention his name.
His name?
You know? This is what they do. You are coming into office, the first thing you want to do is dissolve the local governments. And the Supreme Court has ruled. The Supreme Court has ruled at least twice that local government chairmen that were elected are people who can have access to the funds of councils. Governors want to put their own boys there. A lot of them don't want to do election. Anambra State, for 18 years now, Anambra has not consulted a local government election. Peter Obi was there for 8 years. He didn't think that it made sense to conduct local government election. Obiagwu came. He didn't conduct local government election. Charles Chukwuma Soludo is there now. He has not conducted local government election. All they want to do is just put their boys there as caretaker committee so that they can have access to the funds of the councils. And this is what the federal government, through the Attorney General, is saying, no, enough. Your own funds get allocated to you. Why are you tampering with funds of local governments?
All right.
So I think that somehow we have to find a way. The Constitution talks about the local government autonomy, but it only exists in writing. So we have to use the courts to affirm that governors should not be tampering with the funds of these people. How about even making them receive their funds directly, first line charge, so that they can do what they can execute projects the way they like. Only very few governors are not tampering with local government funds.
Right.
So I think that this is an idea whose time has come. I support the Attorney General. You know, look at what the Rivers governor said, that he has ceased the allocation to local governments because the tenure of local governments were extended by the assembly.
All right.
It does not want, but that is not the only place where it has happened. In Zamfara State, the tenure of local governments were extended. If the law permits that kind of extension, why are you seizing their funds? Imagine Fubara sitting in his office and saying they should send, the treasurers of local government should send their payment schedule to him so that he can pay directly, which is against Section 162 of the Constitution. He has no right.
We'll have your perspective. We'll have you talk more on this after. Let's speak with SAN. Joining us via Zoom for more insight on this issue is a legal expert and senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, Chino Obiagwu. SAN, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
So many experts are raising the issue of jurisdiction over the suit by the federal government. What has the federal government to sue state governors over local government autonomy?
Well, the issue of jurisdiction, I think, my personal opinion, shouldn't arise because the federal government has the responsibility to ensure compliance with the Constitution by all organs of government. And that's what the Attorney General of the Federation has done. The Constitution has given the Supreme Court the original jurisdiction when there is an issue of dispute about the interpretation or application of the Constitution. And in this case, Section 7 that created the local government. So if the federal government feels that Section 7 of the Constitution is not being complied with by state government, I think the only place they can go to, the federal government can go to, is the Supreme Court. So I have not read any objection as to jurisdiction, but if my personal opinion, the Supreme Court has jurisdiction in this matter.
All right, so what are the legal or constitutional options available to ensure governors change their stranglehold on local governments?
Well, clearly, this is not the first time the Supreme Court, just like my colleague in the studio said, this is not the first time the Supreme Court has pronounced the autonomy of local governments as guaranteed in Section 7 and has said that states have no responsibility, has no legal right to dissolve local government council, appoint caretaker committee, or even tamper with their funds. A case that is at hand is Olugbimi, the Attorney General of Ekiti State. In 2016, when Fayose came into office, he dissolved the democratically elected local government. And the local government chairman and councillors went to court, and it was litigated up to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, that dissolution was unlawful, and ordered that their salaries be paid for the period they're supposed to be in office. Unfortunately, that was not done until Fayose came in and negotiated and started paying those officers. Very interesting, Fayose himself, failed to conduct local government election for several months. Now, the point is that the legal issue is clear that local government is a third-tier government under the Constitution, and that has to be respected because that is the format of Nigeria's federalism: the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Each of the tiers of government must respect each of the other tier of government. So state governments should not interfere with the autonomy of operations of the local government. But legal experts have said that the Constitution itself also gave the state the power to make laws for operation of local government, for election of local government. So that creates some level of constitutional inconsistency. Because if the state government cannot make laws, then they can make law with respect to tenure. They can make law with respect to extension of tenure, like as we say, and they can make law with respect to management of funds, because the Constitution did not mention funds. So what is there that is, my opinion, the solution is a combination of legal and political approaches. The state government need the local government to be controlled. They need to control local government so that they can have access to the political structure within the grassroots. They also want the funds because most of the funds state governments are using to local government funds. And I think it's a combination of both legal and political. In the side of legal, Supreme Court has stated it is clear that local governments are autonomous. But in terms of political approach, that has not been done. And I think the federal government should also take a clue to find political solution to local government autonomy.
To learned sense, is it that these governors cannot function without tampering with council funds, or some of them are just greedy? Because I remember when Dixon was governor of Bayelsa State, he was praised for the fact that he was not touching local government funds. Why is it difficult for some of these governors to simply turn their eyes away from the funds of this local government and allow them to bring development to the grassroots? Why is this so difficult?
Well, the answer to the question is your suggestion, political greed. With all due respect to governors who are interfering with local government funds and autonomy, because the state government get their allocations from the federation account. They have internally generated funds. They have other sources of funding. If properly managed, the states can, function without touching local government funds. In fact, states should work together with local governments for integrated development.
Yes.
So the whole idea is that a lot of state governments see themselves as sole administrators. And therefore they control funds. Remember, not just local government funds. These state government control funds from TED funds, tertiary education funds. They control funds from UBA funds. Remember that there's UBA funding that states can pay and then pay some 50%. UBA, Universal Basic Education Fund, would pay the other percent to the states. Exactly. States control ecological funds,
yes,
which is provided for states to use to deal with erosions and ecological issues. And this goes on and on and on. So it is not just local government funds that the state governors have eye on. Well, not all state governors, because like you said, there are some state governors who give autonomy to local governments and for all these funds to function. We've worked with Adamawa state government, for instance, and all the UBA funds and TED funds goes to the Ministry of Education, the state school board, and they manage it. But other states will corner all these funds, put in one pool, and they will be giving commands, giving directives how they are being spent. This is completely unconstitutional. It is wrong. And I think it is time we begin to call state governors to order that there must be constitutional order in management of resources that comes to the states. They have no business tampering with local government funds.
Yeah, let's go back to what happened during the Buhari regime. The Buhari regime, President Buhari came up with some executive orders, and the governors took him to court, and the president lost. Please, can you explain to us the circumstances in which the then president was defeated in court on the matter of those executive orders? And I think one of them was even about local government, or was it autonomy for judiciary? Yes,
well, each case has to be looked at from each, particular circumstances. The executive orders should not override the powers of the Constitution. And where, for instance, in that instance, where issue of judicial autonomy, is definitely the states, because judiciary are under the states. If you look at Schedule 2 of the Constitution that provides exclusive legislative lists and concurrent legislative lists, and then there's residual list. Issues relating to judiciary falls under the concurrent list. So states control their judiciary. So the federal government cannot give directives to states as to how to manage their judiciary, because the Constitution has given them that legislative competence. But if an executive order is made in respect of a matter for which the federal government has jurisdiction, legislative jurisdiction under Schedule 2, such as application of the Constitution, as in this case, I don't think any court will strike it down. So the use of executive orders, even not just in Nigeria, but across the world, has been very selective, so that executive presidents should be aware that they cannot issue executive order on a matter for which the federating units have exclusive jurisdiction. Now, that cannot be compared to local government funding, because local government autonomy clearly is a matter of constitutional interpretation and constitutional application. And I would say that quickly, if you permit me, that it is not just a legal issue. There's also a lot of political issues involved. If you look at local government, our local governments, we have 774 local governments. And these were creation of the military. So a lot of states, for instance, Lagos State, for instance, has 20 local governments. If you go to a state like Kano, for instance, between Kano and Jigawa has 74 local governments. I mean, and then Lagos State government now created what they call development.
Local council development areas.
Exactly. So when the money from the 20 local governments comes into Lagos State, they split it among the council development council units, which, of course, is unconstitutional. And we all recall that was why President Obasanjo withheld local government funds to Lagos State for many years, when the current President Tinubu was governor of Lagos State. So there's a need to also sit down, and that's why I said there's a need for political solution, and look at these local governments again. What are the criteria? What were the criteria? Are there equity? Because local government is now basis for allocation of funds.
Yes.
So it's not just going to court. The Attorney General should also advise the federal government to sit down with state government and look at it critically about issues of local government autonomy and local government funding. And I agree, local government should be allowed to run independently.
What are your expectations as we look forward to this to the Supreme Court hearing this matter? Do you think it could go the way of the suit brought by state governors, Fashola and the rest of them, against Okonjo-Iweala at that time, where they were saying, look, the Constitution says all revenue coming to the Federation account must be shared between the federating units. And the Supreme Court advised them to settle the matter amicably. Is that a possibility this time, or the court will simply look at what the law says and, as a court of policy, make a consequential order?
Well, as a lawyer and a senior lawyer, I'm not supposed to comment on the matter that is already sub judice. But this is a journalist hangout, so I'm free to speak. Now, in my opinion, I think the Supreme Court will not shirk its responsibility to pronounce the law, because it has said so several times that local governments are autonomous. I think the Supreme Court will, make a decision on that point. Yeah. And remember that now that we have a new Supreme Court, we have young justices who have just been sworn in, who wants to also, put their names in the annals of history. We have Justice Garba, who is leading the park. He's a very renowned activist jurist. So I think, if you look at the lineup of the 7 justices on the panel, they would like to put their names in the law reports. So I think we will not go along that way to go and settle. I think the courts will weigh heavily. And interestingly, 27 states attorney general has entered appearance. So that's very remarkable.
Son, are you there? Son, if you can hear us. All right. Legal experts and senior advocate of Nigeria, Chino Obiagwu, joining us all virtually. Thank you so much for your perspective this afternoon. We appreciate your time with us. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, you heard him.
Well, I always enjoy Chino Obiagwu's analysis. Not surprised. He had his first degree in philosophy, then decided to go and read law at UI. So you see that he has a very
objective.
Very objective. I think that this issue, we need to be very, very, very careful. When a man has a headache, the solution is not to cut off the head. You see, the 27 grounds brought by the federal government, there are some of them that are valid. For instance, the federal government is talking about opposition to...
Adeoye, you need to kindly hold on. My producer says we need to go on a break, and we will be right back. Please stay with us.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Adeoye, you were making a point before.
Yes, so we need to be very, very, very careful. In a state of anger, we should be careful not to commit errors. I agree with some of the grounds. State government should stop the solution of local governments. They should not tamper with local government funds. They should no longer appoint ethical committees. Yeah, these are very sound arguments. But then, in a federal structure, when we are talking about autonomy, it's not a blank check. It's not absolute. And when we are talking about local government autonomy, we should also not forget about state autonomy. And the state government, the federal government, there are no enough evidence to say that the federal government has higher moral authority or has higher level of discipline than state government. The same manipulations of structures we have seen in states, we have also seen it at the level of the federal government. Manipulation of, for instance, federal government, coming to local government to mine resources, police, absolute control of police, all exploration in local government and states, where people get their license from federal government and then go to local areas to explore oil without even notifying the states. So, in as much as we need to push for some level of local government autonomy, we must realize that in federalism, these local governments are like rooms in a parlor of in a flat of 5 rooms. You cannot take away the 5 rooms and leave the landlord in only the parlor and now saying that he's a landlord. If you have 16 local governments in Ekiti, for instance, and then the federal government wants to disburse funds to them directly without any direct consequence for the state, then what is the basis of having state governors when they have no level of control over the funds that go to the local governments? So we need to be very careful. And that's why we are saying that we should not push this argument to the extent that we adopt a situation where federal government will release funds to local government directly. So don't forget.
What is wrong in releasing funds to them? If some local government, because we've seen governors who refuse to touch their money.
We can push an argument for reforms that will ensure that state government releases those funds to local government.
Oh, are you saying that federal government should, we should check the excesses of local government officials first before giving or granting full autonomy?
What I'm saying is that you cannot take away the
autonomy.
You cannot take away the local governments from the states. In federalism, is an aberration. There are errors. Those errors can be amended, can be effected without necessarily because you are going to have a situation where you empower the federal government beyond the reasonable level of federalist principles. We may have a good government, federal government
when you talk about some exploration and all that, but those ones are in the exclusive list already, unless we amend the constitution.
We have to.
But that's an argument for another day. I also don't think that states should remain poor when they have resources to turn things around for themselves, and then it is the federal government that comes to legislate on their resources. I agree. But governors tampering with the funds of local governments, and they must not talk. If they talk, you sack them. People who are employed, who are elected You have no right to sack people elected by the people.
Yeah, that's why I agree with those.
You have no right. These are some of the excesses that they are talking. And the Supreme Court has given judgment, not once, not twice, at least 3 times, affirming that you have no right to set up caretaker committees. But these governors still don't listen. The Supreme Court has said that only local government chairmen validly elected should be able to access the funds meant for local government. That is what the Constitution envisages. So, for me, I don't think that it is wrong to have a joint account, but it is being abused.
Absolutely.
There is joint account between the state and the local government, but it's being abused. I talked about a local government chairman who was given his own money, and he burst into tears. He was elder brother to my friend. The moment they passed what came to him for that month to him, he burst into tears.
He was shocked.
Well, this does not happen in all the 30 systems.
Yes, there are some.
It does not happen in all the 30 systems.
Yes, there are. That's why I gave the example. That's why I gave the example of what's his name, Dixon, when he was governor. In fact, they commended him. The National Assembly commended Governor Dixon for not tampering with the funds. Yeah. Can we say that about other governors?
The same thing is happening in the case.
The bulk of the funds that they are spending is even for local government.
Because in future, the federal government may begin to seize funds of certain local governments for political reasons. And that's why, on the basic principles of federalism, we must not allow federal government to be.
All right, just interesting conversation. But let's wait for until let's wait for the Supreme Court verdict.
What Obasanjo did at that time was that what he said was, you have no right. Those local governments are not recognized by the Constitution, and because they are not recognized by the Constitution, he seized their funds. I hope that Lagos and other states can get the National Assembly to validate their local council development areas so that they will become, local governments, and then they will be in the Constitution. Because only 20 local governments are recognized up to today from Lagos State, 44 from Kano. So it was on the basis of that he now used his position as president and then said, okay, since you have created illegal local governments without going to National Assembly to have them validated, I will not release funds to it. It was not in his place to seize funds.
We will definitely wait for the outcome of the Supreme Court on this matter. Let's move on quickly to the